Look what we have here. Ta-da! It suddenly looks complete. Windscreen is in. It's a real art fitting these windscreens, so I left it to a pro. The profile's really good on this one. They can be a real bitch, but no, Colin Bray is the man for doing windscreens. He has done a great job fitting that one. He did my police car as well. A lot of people don't like doing SD1 windscreens because they think they're really difficult. It's because they curve so much, and then they've got that stainless trim to go in as well. Yeah, really happy that's in. The car looks complete, and what's also good is where I've put the A-pillars in and all the metal work down here, it fits lovely, so I didn't balls that up. Excellent. So that's my chassis reinforcing member, which will go across there. It did have flanges on it like that. This is actually a front one because they're the only ones you can buy. So I've chopped the flanges off and I'm going to fold them lower down because this whole thing needs to be shorter. The front one, which I replaced, is the taller one like that. Rear ones are short, so I'm going to take this inside now and bend 2 10 or 12 mil flanges into it. I've just clamped it in a vise level with my scribe lines. Then I'm just gently tapping it over with a hammer. And I'll just go backwards and forwards until those are bent at 90 degrees. So that's going to sit in there like that. I just need to go to the other side of the car and get a reference measurement of how far along the chassis rail and inner sill it sits. So that I'll measure that, mark it, tack that in. Right, that's in there, welded top and bottom. I haven't welded this end of that yet because when I make the floor I want to make a return flange that sits between the inner sill and that. So that's just hanging in free space. So I'm just going to nip off a couple of the welds. That's what it looks like from underneath. That's the end of my chassis rail. Hopefully when that's all undersealed you'll never know it was repaired. Next on the to-do list is to remake the leading edge of this heel board, which is this bit here. It would come down and then do a 90 degree this way and sit on top of floating above this, and then the floor goes underneath it and that flange from the heel board goes down onto here. I'm going to make this bit first because it's going to take more shaping, and the flat plate that goes on there is probably the easiest bit of the lot to do. These are the fluted bits that I wanted to kind of replicate. Unfortunately that inner sill, although it has them, it doesn't have them at quite the right spacing, but I'm going to chop it out so that at least I get one here and one there. It'll also have the start of that bit, and I'll just have to hammer the rest of these shapes in as I go. So I've marked out on here roughly I want from there to about here and enough to put a 10 mil return on the bottom. So that's the shape I've marked out. I'm going to chop it now and then start shaping it and putting the 90 degree return in. I've marked on there. That bit I don't need, that fluting is okay, that one I don't need, so I'll hammer it flat. This bit starts okay here but needs to be wider, so I've marked that. And this one wants to be shifted that way a bit, so I'll do that and then I'll return, put the 90 degree return in afterwards. It's also just started raining. Not badly, but rain, welding, grinding outside, that ain't fun. It's also windy, so it's blown away some of my shielding gas, which is annoying. Right, I probably should have thought about this a bit more. When I hammered that middle one flat, of course it pushed additional metal outwards, which is meant in a what was a flat piece of metal that way is now bent. Two ways to fix it: cut a slot, bend it, weld it back together. But before I bother doing that, I'm going to hammer these ones, because it might be that as I push metal away here, it pulls that top edge back in again. But yeah, just going to have to be conscious of doing that. Bit of a fiddle. Just been lightly tapping that bit because I want to create a depression everywhere that marker pen is, and already it's starting to change the shape and pull it in. which is good. The only problem is it might end up with an S which is staggered, so I might still have to chop it and weld it, but I won't know until I've finished shaping it. Well, it turned out I don't have great panel beating skills, so I gave up trying to beat the metal straight and get it all nice. So what I did instead was had to cut it and section it. So that's going to go in there. I've just tacked it for the moment. So I'm going to clean off those areas, sand it back, weld it nicely, take it back inside, clean it up, put the return in, massage that end, weld it in the car. Right, that's now welded in. It all looks good. I've left enough of a gap here so I can slide my 1mm flat floor in, or 0.8, 0.9. There's one gap here. The metal was slightly rustier than I thought, which is annoying. I'll have to just make my floor piece slightly larger, and then it'll be plug welded down onto that flange, so strength won't be an issue. All of this will be hidden by seam sealer, under seal, carpets, all the rest of it. So it's a lot of effort to go to, but it'll look better than had I just boshed in a big patch or something. So it's raining quite a lot more now, so I'm going to go in, get a coffee and keep my tools out of the rain. I think rain has stopped play. I've packed up everything. You may not be able to see it on camera, but it is actually raining now, which is quite annoying. So there are some other bits and pieces to do which I can do inside, so I'm going to shift my attention to those. I knew I had some other brackets knocking about. I knew about this one. I'd forgotten about my headlight brackets and the other panels that go in the engine bay. So they're easy, just clean them up. The studs have sheared off, so I'll have to sand or grind them out, then put some M6 bolts through and then tack weld them in from the underside. So that's those done. Then this one, as much as it needs a really good scrubbing and cleaning up, that bit needs to be welded back into position. So I'll do all of that next. Right, got my studs or M6 bolts welded into those. Cleaned up that bracket a bit, cleaned up that one a bit, welded that back together and cleaned it up a bit. I'm not going stupid with the prep on these. I'm going to put some rust killer on them, maybe a bit of primer, but I'm not going to be doing a proper, beautiful, lovely, clean job. I just want the car together now, and these are the sorts of things that if you get really anal or it really pisses you off, you can just unbolt later and paint them up at will. So I just want them in the car now. It's raining quite a lot now, so it's nice that I've got the screen in. Thinking about this logically, if I can't do welding, the next sensible thing to do would be to fit the bulkhead insulation panels and then the sound foam that goes behind them. Then once they're in, the servo, clutch master cylinder, brake master cylinder, all of that can be refitted. So I'm going to go back inside, find where I've put them and do the final prep. I think there's a few more holes to drill and bits and pieces, and then I can get them on there. Change of plan again. While I was looking at the bulkhead insulation panels, I realised that actually this bracket here, which holds the wiper linkage in, has to go in first and be bolted up, and then it all gets covered by the panels. So basically I need to sort a wiper linkage. That's the actual one from that car. I didn't have an opportunity to test it, so I don't know whether it actually works. That is another spare from home which I've bought in just in case I need parts from it. And then this is a new old stock frame that I got in a whole job lot of parts off a guy called Ray. So I'm gonna try and look up the wiring diagram on the internet and remind myself what you need to feed in where for the different speeds, and then I'll test it with a battery just to make sure that motor works. Then if that motor works fine, I'll rebuild all of that onto this frame and hopefully have one nice fully functional assembly. Right, I couldn't find the right wiring diagram on the internet, so I've just been playing first off with my shitty old one. That seems to be the earth. This is one speed, and this one is the other one. So that's high speed there. That's low speed. These two at the bottom are actually redundant. Now on this one, which is the motor that was in the car, basically I think it's all seized up. I won't do it again because I might blow the motor if it's any good anyway, but yeah, that linkage is... I ran out of memory on my iPhone, so I'm using the camcorder again. I can't quite remember where I got up to, but I think it was testing the motors. Basically I thought, yeah, the motors seemed to be working, but the mechanism was all too stiff, so the motor was stalling out. So I was going to build it into this mechanism, which I started looking at, but realised it was really, really stiff, because although it's brand new, the grease or whatever was in the spindles had hardened. So I took the circlips off, took them apart, cleaned them all up. I didn't have any grease, and I don't really want to put grease in there because it seems to just go hard and cause a lot of friction. So I just put some WD-40 with some really clean engine oil, and now that moves really nicely. So then I cleaned up the motor, painted the back end of it. When that's dry, that can all go back together. Then I can nick the remaining parts off of these frames, like the earth strap and that bracket. Then I can put it all together and put it in the car. Meanwhile, while I had the paint out, I painted those bits and pieces that I was prepping earlier. There's still, that one's just got a mist coat on it. There's a few other bits to do. I did the headlight brackets as well. So now I'm going to get back on to what I was doing originally, which is sorting that foam and the bulkhead insulation panels. These are my DIY bulkhead insulation panels that I made out of fiberglass. They fit really nicely in the engine bay. What I need to do now is do a final bit of prep on them and paint them, and that's what's going on this side. But I also need to drill the final holes for the fuel enrichment cable, the accelerator cable, and I think there's a couple of fixing brackets or something in here. So I think I marked them on the back already, or there should be, so bits like that need to be channeled out. I'll use the die grinder, big hole through there, another bit up here. This one, I think it's really only the enrichment cable, which is there, and one bit up here. And then, oh, is it that one? I don't know, I'll have a look in a minute, but yeah, otherwise it should be good to go. So I've been outside and I have trimmed and drilled my holes, and what I've also done is marked areas in red tape where the fiberglass is a bit thin and needs some reinforcement. So I'm mixing up some more of that dolphin glaze, and I'm just going to toss it on the back, and then that should keep that sorted. I've put all this back together, and now that's slow speed, high speed. So that's ready to go back in the car. So pretty good. One good one out of, well, two cracked ones on a new rail. Pretty happy. Here we have my bulkhead insulation panels. I've given them a coat of matte black enamel, and they've come up really nice. They looked black already, but this stuff hopefully will mean that they'll wash down easier in the engine bay if they get oil and dirt on them. So I'm going to give them another coat in a minute once that's flashed off, and then I can put the foam insulation on the back. It's still raining just, which is annoying, but it's slowing up and it's getting a bit breezier, so hopefully that will dry off soon and I can go work outside. Right, this is something I have been agonising about for quite a long time. Originally these would have been like this weird rubber front, and then on the back would have been this thick foam stuff. I've tried to get as close as I can to the original foam. The original foam is about that thick, but it falls apart and it's useless. What I've done is I've bought some special sound insulation foam, which is this, and it comes with a sticky back stuff. I've got a massive sheet of it, and what I've done is I've cut it out and then stuck it on the back of here with its self-adhesive stuff, and then also some fabric upholstery things, so that all looks great. But the problem is that this stuff is open cell, so if you pour water in it, it just goes right through and comes out the bottom, apart from the last bit which just gets held in there by capillary action. So I wasn't particularly happy about having that on the bulkhead and then water pissing through and getting stuck in it, and then that just being held against the bulkhead and maybe it rotting out. But it's just the same as the original stuff in terms of it being open cell, so fingers crossed it's going to be okay. I'm going to try and seal the top on the bulkhead panel when I get to that point of putting it in. But really, there isn't anything else on the market that I know about that's going to do the same job, and that is be good for noise and waterproof. So I'm just going ahead with this, and you know, this is sold as an under bonnet type material. So what I'll do is when it's in there, I'll just try and divert the water off it as best I can. Where that central drain is, I've chopped the foam short, so the water should run straight down past it, and then I'm going to trim off anywhere where this is going to touch the transmission tunnel, and then hopefully that should stop water actually being held against the metal. And then the actual final covering is waterproof plastic anyway, so hopefully I'm stressing about nothing, but we shall see in the fullness of time exactly how this stuff works. But you know, it's meant to do this job, so fingers crossed it's okay. Right, had a bit of a fail. Went out to the car to offer this up and realised that I hadn't drilled the hole for the clutch or for the electrical wiring to go through to the windscreen wiper motor. So I've been out and I've made myself a real crude etching off the car bulkhead, then transposed that onto this, and I'm just hoping it's in the right place. Right, it's still raining, but I've come out here. Got good news and bad news. Good news, wiper linkage is in, and the distance between them two is right, which I knew it would be, or I hoped it would be, because I was pretty careful when I welded that bit all in. But it's nice to know that it's there. Bulkhead insulation panel is in. I might take it out again just to give it a respray where I had to chop it, but that's going to fit really nicely, so that's good. The grommet goes through into the scuttle panel, so that's nice. What's really shitty is this. Basically, when I peeled the tape off, there was a hole in the windscreen in while the glue bonded. It peeled my paint off, so that's not the end of the world. It's annoying, but stuff it, it's going to happen. There was already some imperfections when the windscreen fitter came. He caught the paint there with his tool and put a big gouge through it, and he also dropped the windscreen on the scuttle, so it slid down and damaged the paint up there as well. So the turrets are fine, and that's really all that matters at this stage. All the rest of that will be painted at a later date. At least it's waterproof and it's blue underneath. I'm going to pack up now because it's still raining, so I can't do any welding. And anyway, I have to drive to Dunstable, which is about 2 hours away, to go and do some work at night time up there, which is annoying. So it's been quite a long day. I've achieved quite a lot. It would have been nice to have finished the welding this side, but that can wait for another day. It's all in there, still wants cleaning up. The panel that goes on top should be quite fast and simple to make and to weld in. Then it's just a case of painting the inside of the floor with some zinc paint and painting the underside with some epoxy, so then the fuel tank can go back in, and all the rest of it can be stone chipped and treated properly at a later date when I do the sill. So hopefully it's it's Friday night now. Hopefully by Wednesday work in the evenings, and also Wednesday I should have off for work. It'll be driving and on the trailer up to the NEC Classic and Restoration Show. Yeah, fingers crossed.